Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from Vienna. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Making It in Austria. My name is Adela Mehijanic. I will be your host today. And my guest today is Melissa Hadzimuratovic. Melissa, welcome to our channel.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you with us here. Melissa, let's start with your short introduction. Who is Melissa? What should we know about you?
Yeah, I think since the topic is making it in Austria, I think I should start from how I came to Austria. So I'm actually from Bosnia, same as you. I moved to Vienna 8 years ago. I grew up in Sarajevo, which is the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Before that, I actually lived in Germany when I was really, really young. So I had that benefit of already learning German a bit as a child. But after 6 years in Germany, we moved back to Bosnia and actually went to primary, secondary school there. I started my university in Sarajevo, and somewhere through my studies, I decided to move to Vienna, continue my studies there, and then I stayed. So yeah, that is a bit of how I came to Austria. I actually studied English, language and literature, at the University of Vienna. And I was always thinking, okay, I need something else with English, because you can do everything and at the same time nothing concrete, because I didn't do it on let's say LAMT, where you can then be a teacher or something like that. Because in Bosnia, it's different. When you start your bachelor's, you only decide in your master's if you want to be a teacher or a translator or something like that, and then you specialize on that. But the bachelor is the same for everyone. But in Austria, it's a bit different. You can choose already from the start if you want to be a teacher, and then you need to have another subject next to, for example, English, let's say history or something like that. And you also do this pedagogical let's say education with your bachelor's, and it's actually then a bachelor's and a master's to become a teacher. So it would have been really hard for me to switch to be that. So I was like, okay, I need something with it. So I started studying a master's. I continued with English because it was they just continue it basically. You just have to say, I would like to continue with the master's. I was like, okay, I'll add something to it, and then I will have this sort of combination, and then I will see what I will do. So at first I started with international development, because that was also easier to get into. And I figured, okay, maybe I'll work for some international organization or something like that. But that's also very hard, because I realized you have to do a lot of internships and things like that, which usually unpaid. And when I, for example, always needed to work, and I always worked next to my studies. So for me, something unpaid wasn't really an option. And then in the meantime, I joined some student organizations. I was always meeting people, and how it is in a big city like Vienna, it's very international, so you always meet people. And a friend of mine, she suggested that we volunteer for this conference her company was organizing. It was an IT conference. So we did. It was fun. It was 2 days where you were at the venue and helping out with different tasks. And I was, for example, with helping out with registration and things like that. So this was a lot of fun. And in the Facebook group of the volunteers, they wrote that the company itself, which was a startup, was looking for people to join the sales team. And I was like, okay, I was always working in sales, like as a job. I mean, I actually worked at a chocolate store for most of my studies. So, I mean, I kind of saw it as a way of sales. So I was like, okay, I can talk to people. I'm communicative. I like to talk to people. So I could do sales. So and then they actually offered me the job, and I started. But after like 2 months, they needed someone to do recruiting. And how it is in a startup, they always see if someone can do it within the startup, and then you just switch to a different department. So I did, and I was actually IT recruiting, which I knew nothing about. I'm not the biggest IT person. But yeah, I just took the chance. Because also in the meantime, I took up master's studies at the FH Wien, because I found out that you don't actually have to have a bachelor's in economics to do a master's in sales or human resources or something like that. So I submitted, and it was really like right before the deadline ended to submit your papers. And then I studied for the entrance exam, and I got in. And actually my first choice was sales and marketing. My second choice was human resources. But then I got the spot in human resources, so I just took it. I was like, but it actually was a very nice, happy accident, because it actually happened to be the thing that I really liked and that spoke to me as a career path. And then in the meantime, also within the startup, I switched to IT recruiting, because they knew I started studying human resources. So we're like, okay, you're already studying that, so why don't you do it? And then I did a lot of online research. Okay, what are technologies? What is Java? What is JavaScript? What is the difference? What is the difference between backend and mobile developers, database developers, things like that. So I really had to read a lot into it, because I was matching people to jobs and I was interviewing developers. So I needed to know things, right? So this was a lot of fun, because it's so diverse, and you really so many different positions, so many different profiles, and the developers that I got to talk to were really, really great. So I learned so much just by interviewing them, because they can so well explain how these things work together and why these technologies are used and things like that. So I learned a lot just by listening to them explain their jobs to me. And that's actually how I got into IT recruiting, and I realized how much I liked it. And I was like, okay, this is something I wanna keep doing. Yeah, but it actually all came somehow at the end by accident. If someone had told me that this is gonna be my job, I would have said like, I don't think so, no. But yeah, I guess life is funny that way. Yeah, so this is my story. This is how I came to be an IT recruiter and come to Vienna. And yeah.
And what is your current role, Melissa? So what do you do in your current role?
Yeah, so I work for a global company, Zühlke Engineering, actually, here in Austria. It's one of their many locations, but I'm actually only responsible for the Austrian market, let's say. So what I do is I do talent acquisition, which is in this case recruiting for the company. So we try to fill the positions, and we also try to plan when we will need more people. And then I actively I deal with the applicants. I do usually phone screens to see if to ask some more questions, because often from a CV you can never have the full picture of all of the information. So this is what I do. And cooperating with the hiring managers to try to find the right people for the position. I also do a bit of active sourcing, which means that I go on LinkedIn and I try to find people that would match the position, and then I write to them and see if they maybe would be interested to switch, or maybe find out a bit more about their company. And that's on one side, and on the other hand, I do employer branding, which actually goes kind of hand in hand with recruiting, because with employer branding we try to raise the awareness of Zühlke as an employer, and especially in Austria, because we're not as well known in Austria as we would like. So we're now working on that, so that people really recognize us as a good place to work, and see that we're actually doing cool stuff, and maybe even apply themselves when you have open positions, or even just send us an initiative application, so we get into contact. And maybe when we have something in the future, then it's just much easier because you have the contacts already. So this is the two things I'm working at the moment. Yeah.
I hope this video helps to promote more of Zühlke.
I hope so.
As we talked before, so we have some mutual contacts and people that are working at Zühlke for a very long time. I'm curious, you mentioned two things, and I need to ask, recruiting and LinkedIn.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit, behind the scenes? So what is that? How do you search? So keywords, what's important when you open someone's LinkedIn profile? So what are you looking for? Any tips, how people can, have it up to date?
Well, I think I, for example, use mainly LinkedIn to find people, right? Because it's a social media, but it's more related to your job. So for me, it's, for example, not appropriate to write to people on Facebook and so on. It's your private channel. Maybe you don't want to talk about work in your free time and so on. So for that, I think LinkedIn is a really great thing. You can have your professional profile, you have your CV on it, or basically your career journey so far, and you can really choose what to communicate about your career, about your skills, and I think it's a really great thing. And you can also connect with people and just build up this network, because I think networks are incredibly important when looking for a job. I think, of course, applying and writing a cover letter and so on, but if people have met you at some point in your life, you often leave an impression, and it just makes it much easier to then get back to a person if you see that they're looking or their company is looking, and then you can get back in touch with them. It's just different, because with the cover letter, it's only really what you write, and sometimes it's hard for the other person to really see you, right? It's only the limited information that I receive. But if I've met you at some point, maybe at some career fair or at some event, and then I remember you, then it's completely different. Then you're already a three-dimensional person that I've met, and then I already have some kind of let's say impression of you. And I think it's also doable over LinkedIn, because you do get to message with people, and you get to see what this person is interested in, what they're sharing, what they're commenting, things like that. So you do get to share a bit more of yourself and of your personality, even through LinkedIn. Even though if it's a bit of a more professional setting, you can still sort of show yourself and your interests to future employers or to future partners, people you might want to cooperate with, things like that. So I think it's a really social media channel that shouldn't be underestimated in the power it has, especially nowadays, because people are connecting and using social media a lot more. And I think it's a really a good way to really present yourself and put yourself out there. And also, it's just there is, especially in the IT world, there is not that many people who are looking for jobs, right? A lot of IT people have jobs, and there's just more IT positions emerging, that there's not enough people to fill them, right? So it really comes to that, to make a connection with another person and really present them your company. It's also a bit of this advertising and trying to really have them see you even as a potential place to work at, especially if they're not really looking. So this is how we also use LinkedIn to really connect with people and share with them what we do as a company, and hopefully they will be interested to talk with us about maybe working for us and finding a place at our company. And I think most recruiters already have. So LinkedIn has a LinkedIn Recruiter that's like a separate license you buy. So it's like LinkedIn. There's also a similar thing for salespeople called Sales Navigator, for example. And there you just have many more filters, how you can filter all of these profiles that are on LinkedIn, which you cannot really do with just your simple LinkedIn. And for example, LinkedIn Recruiter, I can really search for skills. And let's say if I search for IT people, and I'm searching for a Java developer who, let's say, works with Spring Boot and works with, I don't know, MS SQL as a database, I can really, with a Boolean search in the skills part, I can search for several skills match, and then it shows me those profiles with people who have those kind of skills. So updating your skills is definitely a great way to do it. But this search engine also scans your entire profile. So it also helps if for every position where you worked, you write in bullet points what you did there and what technologies you worked with, for example. For people who maybe do marketing or sales, it's also important if you use certain tools that you write them down underneath your, let's say if you say I worked as a sales manager, that you write what your tasks were, that you would maybe write if you used a certain CRM tool or something like that. Because if the company is using a similar tool and they just want to see, then it's a great plus, because then they know, okay, you already know how to work with that tool. So it's great. So it's definitely a great way to use LinkedIn, because it just makes it easier for recruiters to find you in such a way. And also recruiters from agencies are a great way to have them in your contacts, because maybe you're not interested at the moment for a job, but staying connected with them helps you have these contacts for when you are looking actually, or when you want to change, because then you can get back in touch with them. They're always happy to have extra candidates coming into the pipeline. So they're always going to be happy if you say, hey, now I would be interested to see what's happening on the market. Maybe I want to change something. Yeah, and then that's also a recommendation. So if recruiters write to you, you're not looking at the moment, you can still stay in touch with them. And it's great to have them, because they usually know what's happening in the market, which companies are searching at the moment, what kind of jobs are being searched for. So they can always assist you with also when you search yourself. It's usually at no cost to the candidate, because companies usually take over that part of paying the recruiters the fees. So I always tell the candidates, use it. When I was a recruiter, I always tell them, use me, because you don't have to pay me actually. So use the advice that I have, or if you have some questions, ask me, because I'm happy to help. It's great if I have a connection with someone, and then at a later stage, you might also develop professionally. You might be looking for something new, and I'd be happy to hear again from you, because that just means I have access to a candidate much easier than when I have to always start from scratch. And
Definitely agree with you. So I have a couple of recruiters that I'm always in touch. As you said, from time to time, we, after like every 6 months or so, we exchange the messages, or there's like another offer, and I say like, no, I'm not interested at the moment. So it's always good to keep in touch, and a couple of sentences, just like, yeah, I'm happy where I am, but let's keep in touch. And that's how it goes.
Exactly. It's context, definitely. That can help you. And I think most recruiters really understand that someone is not interested. It's our job to ask, right? It's our job to, because oftentimes people are interested, or they are at a point in their life where they're thinking about it, but you maybe don't have the time to now search, right? You have so much to still do at your current work, but you're thinking, I would really like to do something else. It's great if you have someone who is sending you job offers, and you can talk with them, and you can also tell them what it is that you would be interested next. So most recruiters are open to know your preferences, and then contact you with available, or actually offers that fit you. So I think it's a great way, because it's actually their job. They really are within the market. They know what's going on. So it's always great. And in general, HR people that contact you also from companies, stay in touch, because you never know. Especially now we see it with the pandemic. Some companies went through the pandemic quite well. They maybe have a bit of a setback, but nothing where you need to really let people go. But some companies were not as fortunate, and you never know how it can hit you, and that you might need to look for another job. What can happen with the economy, and also the trends always change. What is needed, and so on. So some companies just become obsolete because that product is no longer needed, or something like that. So it's always good to not just be on this thinking, okay, I have a job, I don't need to have this, because you really never know. So it's just to be safe, to be on the safe side. creating connections, connecting with people. But if you feel like someone is really pushing me and so on, you can always be polite and say, okay, this is too much, right? I don't need to get a new job offer every day. So, or this is not relevant to me and so on. And at the end of the day, you can always unfriend someone or let's say unconnect. So
Absolutely.
you really don't have anything to lose in this case.
And also you can, so in my case, you can also recommend people if someone is,
Exactly.
that's also a super tip that I use very often when I know that someone is looking for a job. And I say, okay, I'm not interested, but I know that my friend is interested or she's looking for a job. So it's it's a little bit, it's just, making this link, and you never know where it's going to lead, and you never know when you're going to need it in life. And as you said, nowadays the market is changing, and the funny thing is you never know who's looking for a job or not, because nobody's going to say, I have a super job now I'm looking for a job. Usually it happens on a coffee or like a private conversation. So Melissa, I wanted to ask you about how do you see recruitment in the coming years? So especially from my position, for instance, if I'm looking for a job in the future, so how can I maybe prepare? LinkedIn is one of the things that we said, upskilling, reskilling, staying in touch with recruiters. So what is going to be different?
I think, I don't see so many setbacks for people looking, because I think it's still a huge demand for people on the market, and a lot of companies are still recruiting. Same, for example, with Zühlke, even though the pandemic is going on, we're still recruiting normally people. So it's harder for us actually who are recruiting, because people are afraid to change at the moment, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen, and it's a bit of an unsure time. So people are not as ready to leave what they already have for a new company where they're not 100% sure if the company might let them go in a month or two, because actually I think that's the train of thought for a lot of people. This is uncertain time. I don't want to switch, because then the company will let me go after 1-2 months, and then I'm without anything in a pandemic. But actually, companies wouldn't recruit if they don't plan to keep the person for a longer period of time, because the recruitment process in itself is quite expensive. Onboarding someone is very expensive. So as a company, we try to hire the right people who will stay for a longer period of time. Of course, you have the proven monad and things like that, and the chemistry might, at the end of the day, not work out, so that the person who starts might not feel that this is something that they imagined for themselves, and that's of course okay. But usually when we go into recruiting someone, we go into keeping someone for a longer period of time. So I think people shouldn't be afraid of switching if that's something that they want to do, because companies that are actively recruiting, they don't plan to do it if they're not 100% sure that they can keep the people that they're recruiting. So I would say that that's one thing, to not have this fear. If you want to switch, it shouldn't really be stopping you that it's a pandemic. If you feel like, okay, there's a good offer for me to advance in my career, so that's always good. I think, and of course, always working on your skills. It's a great plus. Also, always educating yourself. It can only ever advance you if you're always, if you know where you want to go, what are your goals in your career, and then just advancing your skills. There's so many online courses you can take, also free or so paid. Sometimes your company might even offer that they will pay for a course, if that's within your career range, that you can take. So for example, Zühlke, that's a thing where we really foster people educating themselves and developing their skills further, because of course that benefits us as a company greatly when we have people who are experts in certain fields. And I'm sure a lot of companies also do that. So that's definitely something to look into and use it. If companies have these kind of education plans or development plans for the employees, use it definitely. If nothing, to advance your own skill sets. But then also, of course, that's not so possible within this pandemic, even though there are a lot of online events at the moment. But events are a great thing, because on one hand, you have amazing talks from people who are already where you want to be, for example, and you can get a lot of tips and see how they did it and get a lot of knowledge from them, but also connect with people who are doing the same things or similar things to you, or maybe have some resources that they can share and so on. So that's always a great thing to really know your interests and then follow them, because there's almost a group for anything. And things like meetups and so on. So where you really can join like-minded people and share resources and share knowledge. But of course, it's always a give and take. So it's always good if on one hand you do things on your own and you build your own skills that you can also then share, but then also find like-minded people where you can then exchange these things. And maybe you have something to share, they have something to share. And I think that's just a really great thing, how technology and our current society, how it's going, has really helped people to advance their own skills, or maybe even help you switch or come into a new career. So yeah, and I think never to limit yourself, never to think I cannot do that, because as I said, I would have never dreamt that I would have been an IT recruiter, but it's incredibly exciting. And yeah, in the beginning it's a bit difficult, but you can learn so much on your own, and there's so many information on the internet, so you can really get into a certain topic. And if you have the passion for it, then you can definitely master any skill that you like. So yeah, feel free to dream. Then go ahead.
Yeah. That's really, really nice and powerful. Melissa, you mentioned already, networking, importance of networking, getting to know people know you for a job. I'm also very much about networking, how important that is for one's career. So how do you build your network? So how did you build your network here in Austria? Do you have any tips, some things that have worked out for you?
I mean, I cannot say that I'm super good at it. I'm actually, it's something I'm working on. So yeah, I mean, at university, I really use that space to connect with fellow students. And then if you're invited to things, if you're invited to events, to go. And I'm honestly a bit of a more introvert and a bit of a shy person. So it's not as easy for me to connect with people or go up to someone and start talking to them. So if there are people out there like that, I feel you, and it's a bit hard. But I think it's in that sense to be open when people write to you when they want to connect. So be open to that because someone is making it easier for you, let's say, to connect. If they're already, maybe they're a bit more extroverted, so let them approach you and be open-minded at least. With time, you will also be able to maybe do it yourself and approach people that you find interesting. So that should definitely always at least be open to people and let people approach you if you are not the kind of person who can do that more easily. So that's definitely something. And yeah, and just to certainly be open and also talk to people. Like if you're not sure, talk to your friends, because maybe they are connected, but if they don't know that you're looking for something or that you would like to go into a certain field or something like that, then they cannot help you, right? So it's always good to share. Also Google, just try to find similar people with similar interests. So as I mentioned, there already with all of the technology that we have, there's so many groups. On LinkedIn, on Facebook, as I mentioned, there's a thing like Meetup, where you can really even search for groups with similar interests to you, things that you're looking for. So, for example, for me, I'm into recruiting, HR, and so on. So, for example, I searched online for such groups, and then I joined them. So maybe I'm not in the beginning super active, but they usually post there if there are events that are interesting might be interesting for the group, and things like that. So you really get a lot of what's happening, even if you maybe not physically interacting with people at the moment. But yeah, I think it's important to get a bit out of your comfort zone and go out there. As I mentioned, now it's maybe not the best time, but when the time comes, not to be shy. It's also okay to just go there, maybe not talk to anyone, but you have been there. That's the first step, and then with time, someone might recognize you because they've seen you at 2 or 3 events, and then might approach you themselves or things like that. And for example, you have approached me on LinkedIn, and so it happens like that. Sometimes people just approach it. I think it's important to be open-minded and just say yes to sometimes to opportunities, even if they scare you, because sometimes nice things come out of it. So but I really understand how hard it can be when you're not that kind of a person that's very outgoing, but at least be open to other people approaching you.
That's a really good advice. When I do my networking trainings, so I do it very often, kind of workshops, and this question is always one of the first questions. So like, you're an extrovert, and what is with us introvert?
I think those are the kind of person who would join such a workshop. And now that I know that you're doing it, I almost like I said, as I mentioned, it's something I'm actually working on, so I cannot say that I'm an expert at it. I mean, as a recruiter, it became, for example, a bit easier for me to just add someone on LinkedIn, right? So before that, I would have never done it. But then as a recruiter, I noticed that people just accept you. They like to connect, whatever. And then maybe there will be an opportunity where you will talk about something, or maybe they will like a post of yours or comment or something like that. So you will slowly get to it. So I did it, and then it wasn't that bad, right? And then I realized, this is not something that's really scary. So now I can add people on LinkedIn that I find interesting or something like that. And most of the time they actually connect, and it's nice to have them in your virtual network. And maybe at some point they will post something interesting to you, and you can interact on top of based on that. And then you already have you're a step further to maybe connecting with that person on another level. So I think it's also sometimes, as I said, getting out of your comfort zone, but it's certainly a process, and not to be too hard on yourself if you cannot do it, or really compare yourself to other people. Maybe it comes easier to them. You have your own strengths, and it will work out at the end. But I think, so I really get that the people in workshops, this would be a big topic, because I also read a lot about it. And I think it's always this number one topic. I'm shy, and I don't want to bother anyone and things like that. So I really get it.
But I love what you said, and it is true. It is a process, and we shouldn't be hard on ourselves. As you said, everyone has its own talents. And at the end of the day, for me, building relationships and networking, it's not about the numbers. It's not like, I just go on LinkedIn and I collect hundreds of contacts, and then what? It's just what kind of thing is that? So it's always about, as you said, step by step, getting to know this person. And maybe today you connect, and maybe in 3 weeks you saw something interesting that this person posted, like, okay, that's it. Let me comment on that. And maybe in 3 months you will say, okay, I would like to have a coffee with this person because she's in the same field, or maybe I am moving there. So it's not something what I'm trying to say to people. It's not something that you have to force yourself or the relationship. It doesn't work like that. So it doesn't make sense to just contact hundreds and hundreds of people and believing I have to do that. No, let some magic happen in between, and when you see the real reason to connect, and not just like let's talk right away because we are connected now on LinkedIn. So it's good to
definitely. I think it's a bit harder now, because I think it's also a bit easier at events as well, because then you are really there. And you can also approach someone and then you can strike up a conversation. It's again a bit different than just being someone's virtual connection. So that also shouldn't be underestimated, that people just avoid completely meeting people in person, because I think it's again something completely different, because you have all of these 3 dimensions that you can work with, and really present yourself and make an impression on someone and make this connection, like you said, and this magic happens where you get into a topic. And yeah, like you said, you should connect with people that reflect your own interests or where you want to go, because if you're passionate about something and then you connect with people who are also passionate about it, then it's of course going to be much easier to connect with them, because you are connecting based on this passion that you both share. So it's just so much easier to find things to talk about than if you connect with people that you have nothing in common with, and then you really have to force something, you really have to find some common ground. So yeah, it should, especially in the start, be really people that you share something with, and then you connect based on this thing you have in common. So
yeah, sharing is caring. For
exactly.
I put my networking checklist on my LinkedIn profile. So for people who are listening this, so they can go there and download all the tips that I use, how to prepare, how to, lead the conversation and how to follow up. And especially as well during the online times. For me, I must say it's been an amazing year. So I started creating so-called virtual coffees. So where I would at least two new persons from my network online via Zoom. And I have seen that people are more than willing to have this chat, and people are getting kind of used to it. It's not like, I don't know, a year or 2 ago where the people would say, yeah, now let's wait for 3 months. And when I'm in Vienna, then we go for a coffee and then we prepare this and then let's go for lunch and so on. Now it's mostly, let's have a chat, who's going to send a Zoom link? Is your Zoom link or
exactly.
my Zoom link? So that's also an opportunity to do some, I would say I had some amazing projects through that and cooperations and insightful stories. And I would definitely recommend to people to just give it a try, kind of to do this groundwork, because when hopefully everything is open again, you will have a couple of contacts in your pocket, kind of, and wherever you go, if I go to Amsterdam, okay, now I have 3 people that I can catch up with, or if I go to Vienna or Bosnia, I have more contacts. So it's always good to kind of start before you need it, I would say, like this kind of as well with your career, or get some recruiters around yourself, upskill, update your LinkedIn profile, keep in mind what you want in the next few years. Great stuff, Melissa. Thank you for sharing all the introverts and extroverts. I love it.
I mean, I find it also interesting with the virtual coffee, because, for example, at Zühlke, we're doing that right now, but cool. Internally. So we have this program or app that we're using that schedules it randomly for us. So you get connected to a colleague that you might not actually have a touch point during your work. And it's super exciting, because you just for half an hour, you talk about random things, so not just work related. And it's super cool, because you also get to network within the company, and also that's how ideas come to be, because then you realize, okay, maybe we can actually do something even though it wasn't planned. Or so I find it really exciting to decide kind of new way of planning these things.
Yes, you can unwrap, because we are way more than our title and our title name and title. So, or responsibilities. There's way more, and it's there's something in unwrapping that, like meeting a person and say, I hear a passion about this hobby or that hobby, or reading this book, or traveling is your thing, or sports is your thing, and so on. And these are the things that really kind of bond us together and help later on. Melissa, before we wrap up, so I would like to ask you about some tips, if you have, for people who are kind of considering now to move to Austria, with or without a job, stories. So what would you tell them how to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, I came as a student, so that's a bit easier, because you know what kind of visa you're getting, and what are the things you need. I would say I'm personally a person who likes to plan. I have lists for everything, and people in my life already make fun of me sometimes for that. But it's something I really recommend everyone to do your research before you come, and really make a list of things. Also documents you might need, how you will get to an apartment, what kind of visa do you need, what kind of papers will you need for that. To really do the research beforehand. I mean, it's something I did when I was a student. So, for example, in Bosnia, there was this website. I don't know if it's still the case. I haven't actually checked. It was called Studiraj.va or Studiraj u EU, something like that. That means study in the EU. And there they really had so many information exactly on what kind of papers you need for a visa, what kind of papers you need to submit to your university, what kind of universities are there in Vienna, what kind of, how you, because you have the university, for example, Vienna, of Graz and so on, but then you also have the FHs, which are a bit different. What are the different courses and things like that, how many HTTS points you need to prolong your visa and all of that. So I would always go back to this site, and I think it's so amazing that someone actually shared all of this knowledge, because for me in Bosnia, it was just so much easier to search for it. And then they had information on where to live in Vienna, so the dorms, how do you apply, apartments, VGs, and all of that. So I think there's so many information on the internet. It's a great way to really research. And then second of all, Facebook has a lot of groups like Bosnians or ex-Yugoslavian people in Vienna, but then there's also foreigners in Vienna. And I think actually every country has kind of, people from every country have their group. So you have Hungarians in Vienna, you have things like that. So join such groups, because there's so many people there who have already journeyed to Vienna and already set up their life, and they have so many valuable information, and a lot of people are just happy to share. There's also, for example, a group, Women of Vienna, and I know there it's always, people always ask if they need something, or if they plan to move, what to think of, what they need to. So again, we come back to this, to connect with people, because there's people who have already gone through all of that. So just connect with them. I know that even on Facebook, sometimes people would write me, and I would be happy to give them information and things like that, because I know how hard it is when you come. So I also want to always help. So I think most people think that way. So we come again to this, not to be shy about these things, but just really use the resources that we have and the technology that we have to connect with people, and really, already prepare before you need it, like you said. So maybe even connect with people who live here. Oftentimes, if you ask some aunt in your family, she probably knows a cousin or a daughter, some neighbor who already lives here. So that's, for example, how I got my first job. My aunt, her neighbor's daughters lived in Vienna, and they worked in this chocolate store before me. And so she contacted their mother, and then the girls contacted me, and then they gave me the contact of their boss, and they just said, yeah, bring a CV, and they wrote to her that there's this girl coming. And then I ended up getting that job, and it was just this kind of connection. So thanks to my aunt and to the girls that really helped me out, even though they never met me and they didn't know me. So yeah, just ask your aunt. She for sure knows a neighbor, someone who has a daughter or son living in Vienna. So yeah, just let people know what you would need. Use the internet to research, and be prepared for when you come. Of course, it always helps if you already learn German. So as I said, I lived in Germany as a kid, so I went to kindergarten, and then with my brothers, we always watched German television, so we always never forgot German. So for me, I was very fortunate that when I came to Austria, I already spoke German quite well, so I could do, and everything was so much easier, because compared to some of my friends who only learned German in Austria, I saw how hard it was when you go to the Magistrat, when you have to submit for your visa, and the people there, maybe their English isn't that good, so they're not comfortable speaking. and then they demand you speak German, but your German is not that good. So you somehow manage to communicate with each other, but it's harder, of course. So if you can, try to do some courses, German courses, if you plan to come to Austria, to do them in your home country. Maybe while you, for example, if you plan to come to study here, then while you're in your secondary education, do some German courses and prepare for that before you come, because it's going to make things so much easier if you at least speak a bit of German.
Yeah.
When you come.
Yeah, every little bit helps. So
yeah, I always say with the language, because for example, if you live in your own country, you don't really get to hear a lot of German, right? So try to watch German movies or movies in German with the subtitles in English or something like that, because you really hear people pronouncing everyday words and everyday sentences that are not super complicated. And just surround yourself with that language as much as you can. Maybe read something, a newspaper or a website in that language. And it can really help. So you really need to surround yourself, because it just makes it so much easier to learn a new language. So it's my recommendation. Yeah.
So I think the website is still active. I use the same one, Facebook, at least on Facebook. So I see that they are posting from time to time. Studira EU Forum.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure to meet some of them, people who started the whole initiative back in 2013.
Yeah, it's just really great.
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
for us.
I want to tell them thank you so much, because it really was such a valuable source of information. Yes. I think whoever started this really, it's such a great job, and I'm sure it helps so many students. So it's really great.
Yeah, for us it was, the single point of kind of contact and information back then in 2013.
Yeah.
When 2012, 13, when we decided to come here, it wasn't that many communities like now. So the communities that you have mentioned, definitely I can recommend them as well. I know that there's this as well, International Women in Vienna as well community that has over 6,500 members on Facebook. So they have different topics, so you can always engage with people. Yeah. And one other tip that one of my other guests told me, how he learned language for free, and he said for free is Deutsche Welle website. So he learned German over there. So he was through all the classes and listening it day and night, and so that was his way, free of charge, to learn German.
Yeah, because I think just learning the grammar and things from books, sure, but you just don't hear it. It's still a bit unfamiliar to you. So listening and especially, for example, I was telling us, a friend of mine, a show, for example, a TV show like Friends, I've watched it a million times. So if you have a show or a movie that you watch several times, so you already know what they're going to talk about. If you listen to it in German, then it's going to be a bit different. You will know what they're talking about, but it will be in German. So I think it can also help. So having things like that to really surround yourself with the language if you're not in Austria. Because when you're in Austria, it's, again, I think there's a lot of very intensive courses, for example, at the university before you start. So I think usually the first year you only learn German before you can actually start your university courses. And I think you have classes every day. But again, there people meet international people, and then you speak English among yourselves. So yeah, try to embrace yourself with German, because I think that's the biggest help.
Yes.
Also later in your career, I unfortunately sometimes really have to also reject people, because still in Austria, it's, for your career, it's important to have a certain level of German and also be confident in speaking it. It is the way it is. Sometimes I would wish for it to be more international and that English is the company language, but it will, I think, take a time for this to really change within the business world. So also later in your career, it's going to be very beneficial if you speak German and you feel comfortable speaking German, even if it's not perfect. I think in Austria, I've never encountered that people were not happy that you spoke German with some kind of mistakes or an accent. People are just happy that you're trying, and they're usually very kind towards you still, and then they try to understand you as much as they can. So don't be shy to also speak and learn, and then just make mistakes, and people will correct you, which is not that bad. People still correct me my German sometimes because I say an article wrong or something, but I always take it as an opportunity to learn and then try to remember it for next time. But yeah, I mean, especially if you speak multiple languages, okay, then you're not perfect in one of the many languages you speak. It's okay.
Yes, you can afford that.
Exactly.
And I think from my experience is very, very same, and as well from other guests, people appreciate when you at least, give it a try, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And for me, the only way to learn a language actually is to speak it. So you can memorize all these, words, but if you're not, it sounds very differently. So in your head, it's like, yeah, I have this perfect sentence, and when you start talking, it's like, wow, that verb should be somewhere else, but it doesn't matter. So as long as people understand you, as long as you're just, and sometimes I forget the word, exactly the word, but I can explain it with hands and what does it mean. So it's just, you don't give up, basically. You just continue talking, and at some point you will feel like, oh, okay, now it clicked somehow.
Exactly.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing. One more thing before we let you enjoy your Sunday afternoon is any book that you would like to recommend to our listeners.
I'm currently reading The Power of Habits by Charles Duhigg. I think that's his last name. So I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people at this point have recommended some kind of habit books. But yeah, it's something I'm actively working on myself. So I'm really trying to work on my habits and having good habits. And I think it's probably a kind of thing that we're all struggling with in a modern time, because we have way too many distractions in our life. That just in the morning when you wake up, you have your phone there with 100 things that distract you before you even start your day. And we don't really have to rely anymore on, let's say, sunlight to regulate our day. So we have to do it ourselves. And I think a lot of us don't know how to do it. At least I don't. So I sometimes get caught into this, that I maybe waste sometimes my time, or that I just need my morning to start well, and that I maybe have to rush in the morning because I spent the beginning of my day like looking on my phone and things like that. So I'm working on it, and it's a very good book exactly for that, because it goes a bit on trying to understand habits on this sort of psychological, neurological level. So, for example, it also tells the story of a patient that they had within this research institute, and he had an accident and he couldn't retain any new memories. So he couldn't form any new memories. So like you would introduce yourself, and after 20 minutes, the person would not remember you. So they couldn't create any new memories. But they found out that the person could create habits, and they stuck new habits as well. So it's just a completely different part of your brain that does it. And then they really break down the habits on how they actually work on this sort of neurological level, and how you can actually also try to work with that and work with yourself, not against yourself, to create some healthy habits. And what I really liked, which I often struggle with, is for when you won't be able to do these habits because you may be out of town, or you're visiting your parents, and then you don't have this space to do your routines, or you don't have these cues that would trigger the good habits. Like, let's say you're in your own bed, you have your own sort of house, and you these cues maybe trigger your good habits, but you're in a completely new place. So planning for that, so it doesn't completely throw you off. So you have to start from scratch. So that's something I always struggled with, because I would start with the routine and it'd be going well for a month or so. But then I don't know, I was visiting my parents or I was on holiday or something, and then it completely throws me off because it's a completely different setting. So I found that very interesting to really plan it out, that this will happen and how you will cope with it when it does, and how you can get back to later on to your regular setting. So yeah, it's a really interesting book to listen to, either on audiobook or read it as well.
Thank you, Melissa. I will link it in the description of the video so people can read it, and hopefully we can make some progress in 2021, because I, with some of my other guests, there were similar books as well, all around the habits and be more effective or more productive, or the digital detox and so on. So it's kind of this current state of society, basically, that we are all in.
I think
this shift.
Yeah, because I think that our environment has changed so much in the past couple of decades that maybe our parents could not prepare us for, because they lived in a time where there were no cell phones or where you were not available to your job 24/7 and so on, through emails and things like that. And it's, I think, upon us to learn all of these new skills and how to handle all of this new environment that we live in, and all of these new things that are coming. So they're a blessing, but they can also really take so much away from our time and also our well-being. So I think it's really good that people want to work on themselves, and that there are other people who are sharing their knowledge and what worked for them. So that's really great. But otherwise, because I know people always recommend these kind of books, if someone wants to read a novel, things like that, I can definitely recommend the books from Elena Ferrante. It's an Italian author, and it's a series of books, and it's about this friendship of these two girls in, I think, Napoli, maybe in the 70s, something like that, 60s, 70s. And it's super interesting. It's about female friendship, and how it's never really so clear. Their friendship is also not so black and white. It's super, sometimes they're super there to support each other, and sometimes they're jealous of each other, and how they go through all of that, and also about the society they live in, because it's very patriarchal, and how they as women manage to really, really go through it. It's a super interesting novels. They really take you to that time. So I can absolutely recommend it if anyone out there wants to read a book that's maybe fiction and not so much about habits and things like that. I would recommend the book series. And I think HBO has also made a TV show based on the books. So they already have 2 seasons. It's called My Brilliant Friend. I can also recommend it as well. It's shot in Italy, so it has amazing scenery and things like that. So it's a huge recommendation.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much. I will add it all to our description, and probably someone will find time to watch it or read it. Thank you once again for being our guest today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. I made so many notes as well aside for myself about recruitment, about you being strong, and having plan for your life and for your career, and going from from English literature to coming to IT. So that's really exciting shift, and we need more examples like that, so to show that in IT anyone can be part of the IT scene. So it's not reserved just for people who have studied at a technical university, or have been geeks all their nerds all their life, but as well for people from different walks of life who say, okay, I really find that path exciting and I want to be part of it. So
exactly. And also you can plan stuff, but then also to be open to unexpected things taking you some other way. So you can definitely never plan your life very strictly, and that's okay. I think it's the magic in that, to letting also the life happen how it needs to go, but trying to be prepared on some things and letting other things come into your life.
Be open.
I think it's a good balance.
And now I want to thank all the viewers who watched this interview. Thank you for taking the time. If you like the materials or the episode, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. And if you have someone as a guest that you would like to recommend as a next guest for this year, so please let me know. You can send me a LinkedIn message or you can write me a comment below this video. I'm happy to get in touch with people and interview them. So I'm always looking for exciting stories, inspiring stories, something that move us all together. So thank you all and have a good afternoon and a good week ahead. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.